Hey guys, welcome back to another episode, and today we're talking about supporting small objects. In this particular video, we are going over the Happy Cat model. This is one from the M3DM library, and it is a very small model. It is about 19 millimeters in scale from tail to toe. So most of it is actually in the middle, which is, it's because it's a cat. So you've got like that cylinder in the middle, and that's going to be the larger print area right there, which is why I've got him up at a slight angle. Could probably tilt him a little further, but I think that's actually enough. And the trick with small objects is to make sure that the support tips as well as the support rods and the diameter of both the tip and the rod itself are not too thick. But you still want to be able to support the object itself, so you don't want it to slip. But at the same time, you need to preserve all the small, tiny little details that are going to be very, 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 very hard to preserve on a very small model like this. Now, some people say, well, it's so small, what does it really matter? It matters. Detail always matters. In 3D prints, I've always said this, there's two types of prints. There's okay prints, and there's good prints. If you want a good print, you need to make sure that your supporting is both adequate for strength and will preserve quality. And that is difficult to do in some cases when you're talking about small, little, tiny objects. Little scenery objects are also difficult too. Cups, mugs, plates, things like that, just really small. And the issue just tends to be no matter how lightly you support it, you still have that chance that you're going to pull it off the supports and break it or something just because of the nature of the object itself. Some of the things are just very small. Or thin, number of different issues there. It's not too complicated really to support a smaller object. As far as the actual support style, you're going to use a similar style that you would use with most objects. The difference is going to be primarily in the size of the tip and the bar, because you're not going to need that much support on a tiny little object. In fact, I probably overdo it sometimes on some of these little objects. I mean, the support bases themselves are almost wider than the cat's paw. So in a lot of instances, when you're looking at stuff this small, the object surfaces are so small that the supports actually dwarf them in some cases. Like if you look at his legs, for example, some of those leg parts look like they're about maybe 1.5 millimeters thick. And the bar diameter itself is about 1.15 millimeter on this support style. So you're talking about a support bar that's almost as thick as the cat's leg. And yes, there is subtle differences obviously between the objects, but for the most part, you're building supports around an object that are about the same size of the supports. And you can build really, really tiny supports if you want to and watch your object fail because it's just not going to be enough to support it. But there are better ways to do it. There's a couple different ways you can do this. And I'm going to go over that as well in the second video that I have planned, which will showcase how to do this when the object is attached to bases as well, because that also tends to lend its own difficulties. And I don't think I've actually covered how to support an object attached to a base fully yet, so that might be a good side tutorial for you guys as well. Continue to make sure that you always address all the yellow zones and at least have one or more supports in the yellow zones to ensure that they are adequately getting the pullback that they need from the build plate. One of the things that we can make mistakes on is that we'll under support areas and wind up with pancaking, and sure, something you can easily go in and correct on your second or third print. But I'd much rather get it right the first time. And I'd much rather over support a model the first time I build it and then go in and kind of minimize the supporting for the second or third print and kind of finesse it down to a point where it's printing perfectly with just enough supports to get it done. Whereas going the other direction, you're just adding more and more supports until you get it to a point where, okay, now it's going to print good. And sometimes that can present its own frustrations. Again, always make sure you check for contact points. That's super important, especially with small objects. Make sure that the contact points are clean and you're getting good solid connections with the first couple layers of the print. This will be where your success or failure usually starts and is primarily one of the biggest reasons why prints will actually fail. The first layer isn't actually touching a support tip in some cases, and this could be an islanding issue, or it just be an issue of the fact that it's such a small pixel area that the slicer did not catch it. And so these are things that you just have to kind of learn to look for yourself when you go slice by slice. And it's one of the reasons why the layered slicer slider on the side here on the prep tab is so important, because your ability to go through this and go up and down like that and see each two-dimensional slice kind of as you build up in a three-dimensional space really helps you see where your problem areas are going to start. And you can totally nip them all in the bud, and you'll wind up with a much better printing experience. You know, don't not use the island detection. Don't not use the features of the program. Use the auto supports if you want to. I mean, they're there for a reason. They don't not work. It's just not the best way to support your models. When you start to learn more of supporting, you'll start to figure out that the auto support system is good, it's adequate, it works, but it's too much in most cases. And you'll have to over support in some cases with heavier supports in order to get it to work, because it's not a perfect system. It doesn't always support everything it needs to. It'll wind up giving you pancaking issues because it's a computer algorithm. It's not perfect. So I do tell people, you know, do use those tools. Learn how to use the software, and once you get yourself to a more comfortable range where you're going, okay, I feel like I can go in here and start plugging in support pieces on my own. I can move them around. I can manipulate them. I can start doing my own island detections, that sort of thing. Great. Still use the tools that are provided in the software because they will be beneficial and helpful to you. But at the same time, yes, design your own supports. Do your own support systems. Build your own formula for doing your supports, and you will find you'll find a formula for yourself. And I think it's important to pace yourself with that as well, because it's daunting sometimes to look at these for hours and hours and hours and hours at a time. So you kind of have to take it one little drop at a time. And I think that's the biggest advice I could give anybody getting into the 3D printing as a hobby or a skill or a profession. Definitely patience and time. And I promise it will get easier the more you mess with it. You just need to practice. Well, guys, that's all we have time for today. I really appreciate you guys watching. This is going to get continued on. We have another video planned where we're going to talk about the same particular model, and I'm going to show two different versions of it, decorative base and a non-decorative base, to kind of give you the examples of how each supporting style can kind of alter, even on the same model. You can use different styles of supporting and different structures, and you'll still get a good result. And that's going to demonstrate that as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you got something out of it. Hope it was educational for you. And if you did, drop us a like, leave a comment, and please subscribe to the channel. It does help us a lot, and we do appreciate it. See you all soon.